this is a YouTube video where they talk briefly about emerging adulthood, and then there's a few comments from what appear to be college-age women or young women who are emerging adults.
Inspired by
Our next text, Emerging Adulthood, is one of the more interesting sociological studies that's come out in recent years. In particular, he makes the argument that our understandings right now, in this particular moment in our cultural history, of adulthood and how one becomes an adult are fundamentally changing. That the age range between 18 and 30 has now become a time period for young adults to explore various facets of their identity in a way that hasn't been possible before, including things like work, career, values, love, sex, marriage. All of these things lead to a time period in a young person's life where they are very self-focused on developing their own identity and finding themselves and defining themselves in terms of those social categories.
I think when I graduated high school, I definitely didn't have any semblance of an identity. I think I knew about who I was, and I had some fundamental views, but used titles as an identity. I was, a CrossFitter and club joiner and things like that. And when I came to CMU, I dropped all of those. So I pretty much entered emerging adulthood at that point.
What kind of setting is she in? Who is the interviewer?
Oh, the woman who started that.
Is it a counseling context?
No, it was more interviewing for just informational for this.
Because she said to the camera, she said, when I came to see you, my behavior changed from that.
Or she said see and
Oh, see and you. Ah.
So for the first time in my life, I'm kind of taking charge of everything else.
Before I'm 30, I would love to be married. I would love to actually have one of my first, if not second child. That would be great, and that's actually the goal, but I don't need it. I hope that I have a good job at that point. I have a stable home, stable relationships that I can come back to.
There's all these options, and that's totally fine with me. Most of the time. Most of the time I'm like, sweet, I can go to the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, I can be a journalist, you can go work at a bookstore, I don't care. But then there's other times like when my mother or my father keep hounding me, you have to make a choice, you have to go with something, be something, but you have to decide now. That freaks me out. But then I have to take a step back, remember, this is my life, and I'll decide what I want to do.
And I just wanted to kind of show you that this isn't just something you talk about, emerging adulthood, like it's a very applicable to real life situation. This was an article found in the Star Tribune, actually. And they interviewed Arnett in this article, or Gail did, I should say. There was a law that was passed in May, named for Brandon. I don't know if you guys remember when this happened. I think he drove they found his car in a ditch or, yeah. And they hadn't heard from him, and he was over 18, so they were very slow to respond to the missing, it's not a missing child, he's technically his own person and responsible for himself. But this law went into effect says it covers anyone 18 or older, so I can't remember what was the specific name used for the, I don't know, for the adults who needed more help than you would normally think of an 18 to 25-year-old.
Does it tell us on the next page?
It might. I can't remember the exact word they used. When they talk about this man was really upset his son went missing in Utah, I believe. Idaho. And they, like I said, they were slow to respond to reports that his son was missing because he's over 18 and technically responsible for himself. So this law was passed in Minnesota. So you can include, you know, young adults over 18 to 25 under that cap, that you can technically call the police and say, you know, like, my 19-year-old daughter who goes to college is missing, and they'll respond a lot quicker because of this law. And there's one more chapter too. It's just interesting how Arnett talks too. He's like, it's idiotic to expect,
Right.
you know, people to hit 18 and just kind of here it is. It's hold them to standards of 50 years ago. Why not spend your 20s doing things you can only do then? So I just thought that was interesting that it was talked about just recently as a summer in our own state.
He sees, you know, to the extent that Arnett sees young people or emerging adults as less autonomous or in some ways responsible, he sees that within the context of what society is expecting of them to do.
Right. And then there was another article that I had read about it that I didn't put up here, but he was saying, you know, when he says they mature a few years, while some people mature a few years earlier, some experience delayed adulthood, he also speaks of like kind of a, like not a diminished capacity, but kind of what we were just discussing with, you know, do they have the capabilities at 18, 19, 20 to make, you know, rational, responsible decisions as they would if they were 26, 27, 28. And that's kind of where he goes with that as well. So.
There was an article that we found, that I found called, where they did the study that was done. It was done with people that were preparing for, in the field of education. And as you can see in here, if you want to scroll that up a little bit, the sample included people at different levels. There was people that were seniors, master's candidates, doctoral candidates. And what they did was they had them take this omnibus personality inventory, which measures some and personality traits, and then also had them take the what they referred to as a reflective judgment interview. What they found basically is that the six of these personality qualities tended to be the ones that were indicative of post-formal reasoning that was included here. Basically what it says is that the findings support the conclusion that post-formal reasoning, as described in this King and Kitchener's reflective judgment model, you can relate those things to measurable personality traits. And they conclude that it is clear that reflective judgment is measured by this reflective judgment interview scale is likely to be enhanced by formal education, but this research also indicates that several personality traits measured are related to post-formal reasoning, as described in Kitchener's model.
And that goes back, and that kind of refutes Perry, who concluded that it was not a function of personality, that they were seeing these different patterns of reason, now different models obviously, but you know, Perry didn't think it was related to personality traits. I wonder if we'll swing back in the other direction as a result of this.